just think about this, everybody. So there's a story about, how once I was in the cockpit of power and now I'm a fringe event, aren't I? You're full far in the Labor Party.
But you've finally been protested.
I've been protested. I just think, don't they know who I am? I'm the booth captain at Westgarth Primary School.
Indeed you are.
I mean, they do not know power when they see it, do they?
No.
Hey, Social Democrats. It's Grace, producer of Socially Democratic. Stephen is once again in an airplane going somewhere else, so I'm covering the intro this week. Today's episode is brought to you by the Adelaide Parklands Preservation Society, who protested last week's live show. I work alongside a lot of environmental justice organizations in Victoria, and no one I know from that sector would think it was a good idea to antagonize a group of complete strangers who have no connection to your campaign. For that reason, I am more than happy to pass along this very special message from Stephen. To the 5 middle-aged, upper-class retirees from Rose Park who disrupted the pod by singing at us for 5 minutes, thank you. Your campaign to save 4 non-native trees on a golf course has taken an enormous leap forward. If you need help designing an effective campaign strategy that will actually work, contact Dunn Street at dunnstreet.com.au. We don't do singing, we just win. Relentlessly. Oh, and the $225 you spent on tickets to get into the show will be donated to the Re-elect Peter Malinauskas campaign. Now back to Stephen.
A special shout out to all of our Patreon members. If you want to join those wonderful supporters of our podcast and financially support our show so we can continue to produce great episodes every week, then we encourage you to click on the link in the show notes and subscribe to join the Patreon community of Socially Democratic. And finally, today's episode is brought to you by Maurice Blackburn Lawyers. For over a century, Maurice Blackburn has stood up for fairness, championing the rights of everyday Australians and shaping landmark legal reforms. Today, they're harnessing new technologies to make justice more accessible, more efficient, and more responsive to the needs of modern Australia. All right, let's get on with today's episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome. We are taping this one on a Friday night. That's right. It's been a long week on the lands of the Kaurna people. My name is Stephen Donnelly, and I am the host of Socially Democratic, and I want to welcome you all to our live podcast as a part of the 50th ALP National Conference. Welcome, everyone. How are we all tonight? Yeah! All right, good. All right, remember, as I said, this is not a branch meeting, all right? So there's a bar, use it. Okay, let's get into the show, shall we? And to do that, I want to introduce my 2 monthly guests that are on the pod, as you know. And the first person is the former Victorian State Secretary, former Labor Senator and member for Batman, and he may be a British citizen, but he is born and bred South Australian. We could welcome David Feeney. Yay! And my other guest is a former National Secretariat National Organiser, Deputy Chief of Staff to Daniel Andrews, and the only member of the Labor Party to skip Young Labor student politics and working in an EO.
Shame.
Walk straight into a ministerial job at the ripe age of 21. Would you please welcome Jessie McCrone? Yeah. Okay, let's get a sense of who's here tonight. Since this is a national conference and I'm figuring people have come from across the country, can we hear some voices from folks from WA? Who's here from WA?
Checks out.
Shame.
That releases a lot of jokes, so that's good.
There's intentionality in this. We're just trying to work out what kind of things we can land. Okay, so Western Australian jokes are in. Who here is from the Northern Territory?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, shame. Who here is from Queensland? Hey.
There's a lot of jokes on the table here.
Yeah, I know. Hello, Malcolm. Welcome. Who here is from New South Wales? Hey. Right, very good. Who here is from Victoria? Yeah! Nice. Who here is from the ACT?
We were going to bag ACT anyway.
You should be happy I remembered. Who here is from Tasmania? Hey! Wow. Welcome. Good stuff. And finally, who here is from the great state of South Australia? Nice. Okay, good. So we know those jokes are out. All right. Let's get into the show and starting off with some warm-up questions. To you, first of all, David, obviously you are from this fair city.
I am.
Mercedes College, you shattered the glass ceiling of gender bias at that school by being one of the very first boys at Mercedes College.
Pioneer, I think is the word you're looking for.
Yeah.
It was a girls' school, and then I got there, and we just changed the culture. And then I spent most of my youth at the school trying to protect this gangly, awkward kid called Peter Malinauskas from bullies and others at Mercedes College. So, yeah, we battled through.
That's right. I forget that the Premier is Mercedes alumni.
He's an alum as well.
Yeah, right. Very good.
I made it famous. His parents decided to send him there.
Very good. So, obviously, you moved to Melbourne when you went to university, but you have your Labor Party campaign CV has brought you back here on a number of occasions. Share some sort of fond memories of campaigning here in South Australia.
I did. So, well, after pioneering gender equality at Mercedes College, I did my first year of arts at Adelaide Uni, and that was where I joined this Great Australian Labor Party. I joined the Labor Club then, and there were a number of luminaries in the club at that time, or later went on to become luminaries. So that's where I got sucked into the cult known as the Labor Party. And went home and told my parents that I was, no longer able to concentrate on my studies. Oh, this is the demonstrators?
Oh, is this the Possum Park people?
Yeah. Death to Possum Park. Oh my God, we're about to get the police.
Yeah.
They're going to work on a second verse.
All right. Very good.
Thank you for your patience, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. No. Very good. All right, let's get back to the show, shall we? I forgot what we talking. You were talking about South Australia. That's right. Yeah, go for it.
I think he was personally talking about your views on
I think
Possum
I
Park.
might have actually used Peter's name, and that was a triggering moment.
That was okay, right?
So it's probably my fault, everyone. I'm sorry. So joined the ALP and then obviously headed off to Melbourne Uni. At that stage, I was resolved that I would only spend 1 year in Victoria, but as you know, things changed and I never came back. But in 2005, 2006, I came back as South Australian campaign director for the re-election of the Rand government. And it was a terrific professional experience. I discovered myself operating in a completely alien environment where Labor Party members were cooperative and worked effectively with each other and resolved their disputes. It was very different to the cannibal island of Victoria that I was used to.
So you changed the culture there too.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, what can I say? Change agent. Yeah. So I enjoyed very much that year of working in Adelaide in 2005, 2006.
Very good.
I think they're still going.
They're working on the second verse.
The second verse is really stuffing them up.
Jessie, obviously you're not from South Australia, but we're a big party, and we all like to travel around the country and help each other on campaigns. And I think South Australia brought you here at some stage.
It was the 2010 state campaign, which is the first time I worked full time for an extended period on a campaign. I was on the seat of Hartley with Grace Portalesi.
Oh, yeah.
Which was unusual. It was a left seat, which I didn't know when plopped there. But it is where I met Josh Peake for the first time, who we called to hand over some A-frames. And he turned up and he said, "How the hell have you ended up here with all of these crazy lefties?" I was like, "They seem very nice, actually. Everyone kind of gets on here."
But
and I ended up working on that campaign and we won.
It was a huge win.
Yeah, it was a huge win. It was the first time I'd done phone banking in earnest, which was exciting. It was particularly exciting because we had this great phone recording of Grace Portalesi saying, "I'm sorry I missed you." So if someone didn't answer the phone, which was an amazing outcome, we would play this little recording, and she deliberately made a hiccup in the recording, so it sounded like she had actually been there leaving the recording. And I thought this was the absolute pinnacle of campaign cutting-edge technology.
Yeah.
And frankly, we won, so...
Great result.
Yeah,
Great
we're
result.
building on the legacy of that 2006 campaign.
I think it was. I think you were the one that said leave the voicemails on the recordings.
I remember all of the changes that I made to the campaign in 2006. The one that most aggravated the South Australians was when I started to tamper with the posters they put on Stobie poles.
Which have
Like,
been banned
you can do
now.
the ads, you can change the colours, you can do what you like, but don't touch the goddamn posters on the Stobie poles. So, and now I understand they've been banned.
They've banned them.
Is that right, South Australians? You can't do soap operas? Yeah, okay, tragic. Let's talk about National Conference, and we're going to talk about this conference in a moment, but I want to kind of set the scene in terms of past experiences of national conferences, of which both you have been to many, starting with you, David. Most memorable or
They've won. They won the
remarkable?
park.
Good on them. Most memorable. This will be a memorable experience. It's going to be a weird listen for the folks when they listen to this next week.
Where is Possum Park?
Why is Stephen singing all of a sudden? Most memorable national conference for you, David?
Well, it's probably not this one. As one wag said to me, this isn't a conference so much as a Labor symposium. I do remember the 2009 conference particularly because at that time we had Kevin Rudd, who I think at that time we had to describe as our great leader. And Kevin had issued an edict that there were to be no votes or disagreements of any kind. And so for the whole conference, our task was to sit in our seats and clap like we're extras in a North Korean movie. And that did get a bit jarring, I'll be honest with you. And you'll recall the national conference after that, there was a lot of pent-up I want to have a vote sentiment. So at the conference after that, we voted on, whether we should have a vote. Voting, we broke up on factional lines about whether we were going to have a coffee break. So they sort of, it did kind of, it delayed rather than annihilated the factional instinct of the Labor Party. But 2009, very special conference.
Jessie.
Oh, and mine is the conference after, which was the delayed gratification of voting, which is 2011, which it was an extremely you could feel the tension in the air in that conference and how things were playing out. I think it actually worked in Kevin's favour because he was going out of his way to force as many votes as possible. It was a really long-term strategic goal of his to frustrate the votes in this conference just in case in the next one I'm not in charge. But my most memorable moment from that conference, I was assisting on conference floor with the amendments, and we had one or two computers were the only places amendments could be put in, and only authorised people could be on the computers typing the changes to the amendments. I was one of those people with extreme power. And I remember the left and right assistant secretary of the National Party nearly punched each other out trying to get to my keyboard about one of them was like, well, no, this has been agreed. And I was like, well, that's fine. If it's been agreed, the other assistant secretary will tell me it's agreed. No, the other assistant secretary did not tell me it was agreed. And I think it was over the coffee break that they were having this argument. And then later in the conference, I believe you and some of your esteemed colleagues, I think it was Conroy, Dastiari, it may have been the Prime Minister, then not Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, having a covert conversation about an upcoming vote.
Right.
But it was right in front of the cameras. And I'm sitting there going, because they live streamed this, it was taken live.
Yeah, we're very live streamable.
And I'm pulling at the back of your coat, being like, get off. And you're like, what are you doing? We're having a very important conversation. And I'm like, yes, on live TV. And they didn't listen to me. And that's my story. And I think that's what lost us the next election, David.
And just think about this, everybody. So there's a story about, how once I was in the cockpit of power and now I'm a fringe event, aren't I? You're full far in the Labor Party.
But you've finally been protested.
I've been protested. But as a fringe event, I just think, don't they know who I am? I'm the booth captain at Westgarth Primary School.
Indeed you are.
I mean, they do not know power when they see it, do they?
No. Well, the power of this supreme making body has evolved over time. And if you think back to the original structure of the post-war conference, there was 36 delegates in the room. And it's obviously quite famous for the faceless 36 men story, and I'll tell you about that a bit later. But then in 1967, when Gough Whitlam became leader, he wanted to reform the way that the conference worked and increase the size of the conference to 47. And then in 1981, they changed it again and moved to 99 delegates, and it was now based on the proportionality of the states and the amount of House of Representatives seats each state. So that started just sort of, New South Wales being the biggest state, most amount of delegates and so on and so forth. And then in around 2000, in the year 2000, there was the Crean review, I think it was, and they increased it again to around about 200. And then in 2015, they increased it again to what the size it is today, which is 400. So it's obviously evolved a lot over time. And I want to sort of get reflections from both of you. To you, first of all, David, is bigger better for the way that we decide democracy in our party?
I think we should do a poll about where people think David's going to go on this, because I think they know.
These are words of wisdom. I remember 100 years ago when I was a trade union official, and Bill Kelty, who was then the secretary of the ACTU, doubled or perhaps tripled the size of the ACTU executive. And a wise man said to me at the time, I think it may have been Greg Sword from the NUW, but if you want to make an organisation less powerful and less influential, you don't decrease its size, you expand it. And so I would humbly submit that there was a point in time where the ACTU executive, which at that time was really just a council of union federal secretaries, was an enormously powerful and influential body. And as it expanded in size, and had youth reps added to it, and all kinds of various reps added to it, and
the youth.
The committee then perhaps became more representative, more diverse, but it certainly was less of an impediment to Bill Kelty running the ACTU on a day-to-day basis. So I think that was a salutary lesson for me at the time, and I think as the national conference of the ALP has steadily expanded, it has simultaneously become less powerful because it has become less a council of the most influential and active inside the Labor Party, and instead has become, a mass rally. And as the numbers have expanded and outcomes have become a little less certain than they used to be when there were 99 and everybody knew what every delegate was going to do. This has had the kind of counterintuitive effect of meaning that, and this conference I think is a great example of it, where the people who seek to control this conference do so in an even more certain way. So I guess I would say that every time the conference gets expanded, its power is diluted, its influence is diluted, it actually becomes a less influential body. Now, there's a balance to be struck because you don't want 36 faceless men. That's obviously going a little wildly too far in one direction. But I think the current size of the conference, I would halve it.
Jessie, what are your thoughts on the size of the conference?
Well, I'm just going to oppose that view because David's put it, obviously. I think the question is, what is the objective?
Peter Malinauskas has a heart on his mind.
It is catchy.
Wait till you hear the second verse.
So I think the question is, what is the objective of conference? And I don't think that anyone attending conference comes thinking they are quite explicitly setting the direction specifically for the party platform that is going to the next election. I don't think anyone is turning up and thinking that's exactly what we're doing here.
Well, that is what we used to do.
No, that is what we used to do. And I do think that the way...
Well, now we have symposiums.
Well, no, and I think, though, that there is a space for a broad section of the membership to come together and indicate a a direction. And I don't think it has to be as prescriptive as how we argue over different words and amendments. I think giving some sense of the party's interest. I think, for instance, AI protections has very clearly come out of this conference as an interest of the union movement, of the rank and file sort of delegates. That doesn't necessarily mean that they are writing specifically the policy on AI, but it does mean that there has been a very clear indication of the interest in that subject from the membership. And I think this is important for a couple of reasons. First, when you're in government, it is different altogether because you are running a government, which means that you have a lot more inputs to your policy making, one of them being government department advice, and the other being you're far more aware of the whole chessboard of policy. It isn't you're just focusing on those policies that are going to get you elected like you would in opposition or those things you opposed. So that plays a significant role in how a government determines how they're going to move forward. And the membership does not have a role in that sort of advice. And the second thing I would say is there's been a rise of the political staffer. And I know that there are those in the party that have a very dim view of what they see as empty suits standing between the membership and the MPs. I tend to think, you'll be surprised to hear, that political staffers are some of the best and most hard-working deliverers of the Labor agenda that exist. They work incredibly hard.
Yeah, right.
And their values are in the right spot. But that sort of engine room and momentum means that they're writing a lot of the proposals for the MPs to discuss about what should be coming forward, often a direction of the...
So you've articulated the tyranny of the technocrat. I mean, the whole point, there is this eternal wrestle in the Labor Party, isn't there, between the prerogatives of the parliamentary party and the prerogatives of the broader party.
Yeah.
And the purpose of the conference is to exert some control, dare I say it, have some say over what the parliamentary party is doing. And that is either a process that is enriching or a process that's conflict and disaster. And when the conference is well run and MPs have got a significant say but not total control, that's a dynamic process.
Yeah, but I don't think the absence of votes necessarily indicates a lack of influence. I think that what it usually indicates is a very well-organised leadership, central office, whomever, exactly, who've worked very hard with the relevant...
Yeah, snuffing out all alternative opinions is hard work. I understand.
It is really hard.
Arresting people in the middle of the night and sending them... Oh, it's hard stuff, yeah.
No, I just think that you're ignoring all of the work that goes into motions beyond what we see on the floor. Like, there will be ministerial officers that will work for months with different unions about
guys.
this.
It's just...
I did not see this coming. This is good. The staff is going, yes, Jessie, come on.
Yeah, I think I've picked the majority of the listenership here.
It sounds like your choices are, I want to halve the conference and she wants to move the whole thing into a ministerial office.
Yeah. Well,
I wouldn't let everyone that was at conference be a ministerial staffer.
Shame.
I'll put a third way view as well.
How very Tony Blair of you.
Thank you. I just didn't get to pick up on that one, but you did. You know me too well. In that there is a byproduct to increasing the size of the conference that enables more people to come to the conference as well, not necessarily just as delegates, but as observers, because it is a bigger... It essentially is a festival internal party democracy. I don't know what it was like if you went to the Rest Point Casino in Hobart in 1979 for the conference.
The carpet. I remember the carpet.
I don't think we have a sense of what happened at Terrigal. The photo.
With the smaller conferences. But certainly what I've I've enjoyed about this week anyway, has been catching up with people. The Fringe events. The Fringe program has actually got better. I don't know if folks have gone to multiple conferences, but it's getting better and better every year. I think the events that are being put on by different organisations is great, and it's stimulating, and it really is an opportunity for discussions to be happening, not just on the floor.
And the discount you were able to swing for that ad for Fringe you just did was seamlessly done. But even just the sort of the social activities as well that's happening. I mean, you're sort of catching up with folks over the course of the 2 or 3 days. It's a wonderful thing, because I think that, our party is big and broad, but we don't actually get to see each other a lot, except for the folks that you're in your own state. So it's nice to actually come and meet with people from other states as well and share experiences. And because the last people you want to hang out with are the people you're fighting with from your own state. It's important to go talk to the rest of the country.
It's a very Victorian thing, so let's not bring that into this conversation.
I also think it is good that it moves.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
It should go on the road every 3 years. I think that wherever we go next should be, a new place. It's back to Hobart. I want to go to... Yeah, absolutely. And Queanbeyan. Yeah. Well, I mean... Yeah, absolutely. Putting it on the road. So I think it's a good thing that we've made the conference bigger, because it's just brought more people into the experience, whether the things that are happening on the floor actually are making specific material differences compared to what they were doing, say, in the 1980s, where they were literally stipulating that we'll have 3 mines and that's it kind of thing.
Yeah. So what's the purpose is the question.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's clear, isn't it? I mean, the purpose is to have a big jamboree where everyone gets together, has a drink and catches up.
Love it. Love a jamboree.
And the idea that it's a governing body of the Australian Labor Party, which I'm clinging to like a dinosaur.
But what's National Executive for if not that?
Well, National Executive's role is to intervene in pre-selections where they're not wanted and select candidates who wouldn't otherwise win.
Yeah.
We all know that.
Exactly.
I thought it was just a subsidiary of the Victorian branch running all of our pre-selections so we don't have to.
I'm going to use the plenary powers of the National Executive to move this conversation along. And I want to talk about, since we are in the great state of South Australia, I actually want to talk about the state of South Australia and the South Australian Labor Party, because I'm wondering to myself, and I was going to put these in the categories, but I think it's actually more of a substantive topic to talk about. Is this sort of the apex or the highest point for the South Australian branch in terms of its influence in national party politics in living memory? We think about, we've got Penny Wong, Don Farrell, Mark Butler, all playing not just in the cabinet, but having significant roles and significant influential roles within the inner sanctum, if we were led to believe the way that the government operates. Obviously, we're in government. Labor's in government here in South Australia. Peter Malinauskas is one of the most popular premiers in the country. These are the salad days for the South Australian branch of the Labor Party, and I just want to sort of get your reflections first of all to you, David.
Yeah, it's really a fabulous fruit of that 2006 state election campaign, isn't it? No, that it is. And South Australia has been, I guess, batting above its weight, or fighting in a class above its weight for quite a while. And as you say, you pointed out some of the key identities. I mean, it is now it's a state with 10 lower house seats in it. So small and getting smaller, and yet it has this enormous influence in Canberra and across the left and the right. It's not confined to one. And, of course, as you say, the state government, but also in the trade union movement, I would say as well, where some of the South Australian unions are disproportionately powerful within union councils as well. So, yeah, it's a stunning effort. And I think it's been the case for a little while. And I think it speaks to the fact that the South Australian ALP has kind of managed to create an environment where there is stability, but it's not stifling. It in fact nurtures talent rather than resents it. I mean, we've seen other guided democracies in other states where it has a stifling effect, but here, in fact, it seems to have attract talent, nurture talent, grow talent. So it's a remarkable effort. I think the only historically comparable era would be if you went back to the late 1960s, early 70s with Clyde Cameron, who was then a very, very powerful trade union boss operating from South Australia, and he was charged to lead the intervention in 1969, 1970, in alliance with then Gough Whitlam, the opposition leader. And that was a moment in time where South Australia exerted enormous factional influence across the whole of the Labor Party and through its domination of the AWU and various other things. So it kind of has happened before, but I think this period is quite unique. And there's no sign of it ending, and there's no sign of that conveyor belt of talent running short either. So, times are very good.
Jess, want to get your thoughts on also, it was interesting that in the media maybe a month ago, 2 months ago, there was, not that everyone's talking about moving on from Anthony Albanese, who's doing obviously an excellent job as leading the party and leading the country, but Mark
certainly wouldn't be caught doing it.
No, Mark Butler's name came up, and everyone went, okay, interesting. Maybe even Mark went, interesting, I hadn't thought about that. I don't know, but, people have been talking about Peter Malinauskas as one day making a jump to federal politics as a potential future leader of the country.
Yeah.
And obviously Mark's in there as well. I've often heard people say, you can never have the Prime Minister from one of the smaller states. I'm like, why not? But I just want to get your thoughts on.
Oh, no, I generally agree that there's nothing stopping someone from a smaller state being the Prime Minister, and particularly South Australia. Basically, after all the things David said about the stability that exists here and the connection that the South Australian factional leadership has shown their counterparts in other states, both in the left and the right, I think, again, demonstrates that South Australia has an influence beyond raw numbers. To specifically go to the question about whether I think Mark Butler's up next, which I think is your question, I think he'd be great. I don't think that is where he is positioning himself. He holds, as I understand it, a very important role for the Prime Minister as one of his confidants, as one of his fixers. And I think that he has been prepared to take on some pretty hard jobs. His managing of the NDIS, for instance, is not an easy task and not the kind of thing you run at, I think, if you're trying to present yourself as a future candidate for Prime Minister. If that is your main goal, usually you're trying to avoid any sticky situation rather than running towards them. So I don't get the vibe that that's where he wants to head. But I think this concept that the next leader of the Labor Party will necessarily be from the right, as was, I suspect, assumed, is not the case either.
Like I said, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but in the future, David, who do you think is going to be the next leader of the Labor Party?
Well, given the way Albo's going, I'm not sure the next leader of the Labor Party is in Parliament yet. The 1,000 years is going well. I think in all seriousness, Albo's position in the role is strengthening, and he's kind of, you look at the control that the Labor Party now has in the federal parliament, you look at the fact that there's a ministry full of talent that's just getting bigger and stronger and more sage in their respective roles. I think Albo's performances are getting better as he becomes more experienced and is forever fine-tuning his judgment. So we're talking about a long way off, I think. Albo and his inner circle have often articulated the view that they want this to be a long-term Labor government, as the Hawke-Keating years were. And I guess they're justifiably scarred by the Rudd-Gillard-Rudd experience, so they don't want this to be an exciting 5 years. They want this to be a productive decade or more. And I think Albo's at a point where that project is not just realisable, but it looks like it's entirely going to come to pass, and it's going to come to pass under his leadership. And when you kind of look at the internal architecture of the Labor Party, I just don't think, I cannot think of a Labor leader who's had such an unassailable position inside the party. I mean, he knows the party so well, having been such an influential figure behind the scenes for so long. He knows the parliament so well, having been a legislator and leader of the House for so long. And so he's commanding a party that he just knows so well. He knows, all the unions and all their instincts and blah, blah, blah.
And he even knows what's on the menu of the National Right dinner now,
He
having
does.
attended.
And he was very comfortable at the National Right dinner.
He was very comfortable at the National Right dinner.
Yeah.
I thought people were less comfortable than the Prime Minister.
Yeah, well, usually other right-wingers, yeah. So I guess my point, long-winded as it has been, is that he really is at the height of his powers, and I think has got a lot of road ahead of him. And that makes the task of identifying a successor, I think, impossible.
David thinks the next Prime Minister is in Young Labour. That's the take I just took out that.
Yeah.
It could be anyone in this room.
All right, I'll do it.
So let's talk about this conference. This is some transparency here. When I did the run sheet, I left a big slab of the run sheet to talk about all the things that was going to happen at the conference, and nothing has happened at the conference. So I need to name that. In fact, my only two highlights have been, one, the Prime Minister coming to the National Right dinner, and him saying, "For fuck's sake," on an escalator when it stopped working.
I thought it was a very natural reaction.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, exactly. We don't need our politicians to sort of, do sort of social media to camera things where they're saying, I'm just a regular person, blah, blah, blah. Just get the fucking Prime Minister on a lift and get it to stop working. That's when you see a real human being react. Oh, for fuck's sake.
The funniest thing about him turning up to the National Right dinner was the expression on Laurie Brereton's face. And Albo did make the joke that he thought Laurie Brereton might need a defibrillator after seeing him at a National Right dinner.
I know. When he did come, I thought, Albo, we have to come here, but you don't have to come here. Why are you here? But let's. What have you made quickly of this conference, Jessie? To you first.
Well, there has been a vote, I understand, today. Was anyone there that can enlighten me about what it was? Okay, good.
Brutal. It's great.
It was a pretty searing experience, and people aren't ready to talk about it.
Look, I'm gonna maintain my position from before. I think that credit particularly goes to the Prime Minister's office for a very well-handled conference. I think that it's all gone smoothly.
No, I've got nothing to say about the comments, have we, really? I mean, do you have anything to add on that one?
Well, I've only got sort of, a narrow sectarian factional view about the conference.
So the same view everyone else
Which
has.
I'm only prepared to share with you guys and, a handful of friends. And that sort of narrow factional sectarian view is this. This was a conference where the right wing of the party was expected to be outnumbered in a way that it hasn't been for many, many years. And so that was going to engender a new dynamic. And we were all wondering what that new dynamic would be. And I guess if the new dynamic is that, a left-wing majority doesn't do anything and the right-wing minority sails off with the status quo, I'm okay. Now
you're going to see him in one of those left hoodies.
That's not. I know there's nothing ideologically virtuous about what I just said, but that's the black-hearted soul that I am. I guess from the left's perspective, there was a newspaper article in the week about how Albo voted against the turnbacks policy that was pushed through at a conference. I can't remember when. 2015, there you go. And The Age, I know this because The Age published a photo of Albo putting his hand up at the wrong time, and he was flanked by Joel Fitzgibbon and myself. So my son spotted the article. Look, Daddy, you're next to the Prime Minister. Yeah, voting differently to the Prime Minister. But the article was about how Albo had opposed that policy and now as Prime Minister was not rescinding it or changing it. It was an interesting story. But I thought to myself, at that moment in time, the left leaders and opinions of all kinds could rely on the right to deliver, difficult, controversial policy changes that, for better or for worse, were deemed necessary. And those days are over now because the right doesn't have the numbers. Yes. And so what happens when the right doesn't have the numbers? Does it mean suddenly that there's this policy lurch to the left? Well, the answer, of course, is no, because it means that left-wing figures no longer have the luxury of voting against policies they think are silly and they know the right are going to knock down. They now have to club them to death themselves. And how do they club them to death? Well, I thought they might have to club them to death on the floor of conference, but in fact, what they've done is club them to death in an environment of complete silence. I'm okay with that.
With great power comes great responsibility is what I'm hearing is the summary of that.
So, as I said, it's not a very noble or virtuous analysis, but that I think is kind of where the conference has got to, where a right-wing minority watched the status quo prevail when it might have expected some kind of policy lurch to the left, and that hasn't happened.
And, there's not I think you can commend the Prime Minister in some senses that there's not this greedy zealotry to say, okay, the left have the numbers now, so we're going to sort of do these certain things. Like there's been no, whether you agree with this or not, there's no ballot for the National Executive.
Right.
They didn't test the numbers on the floor, and they said we need to maintain harmony in the way that our party operates.
Yep.
There's power sharing between, there was no ballot for the National President.
Right.
And it was just, it's distributed power. And
another South Australian
Indeed.
became our national president. So, yeah.
We're halfway through the year and we're kind of halfway through this term, and I want to get a sort of bit of a half-term report card of the major parties and their leaders and how they're going, which when I was a young person and it was parent-teacher interview, I used to shit myself because in those days you get a day off, and I'd spent the whole day absolutely bricking it until Mum came home and ready to tell me all the teachers were very disappointed in me. So they should be nervous too about this kind of report card you're about to give them. But let's start with Labor and Anthony Albanese, and I want to go to you, Jessie, first of all. Let's do a bit of a report card on how do you think Labor is going federally. You're looking at me like...
I just can't believe you let your parents go to the parent-teacher interview without you there as a witness.
I wasn't allowed to go.
Oh, no, I went.
No, I wasn't allowed to
If
go.
they were going to talk shit about me, they had to do it to my face.
Yeah, right. No, I wasn't allowed to go. Anyway, I don't know why I brought that in. Let's go. Tell us, what's your scorecard for Labor at this point in time?
I think Labor are achieving what they've set out to achieve from the first day they were elected in 2022. And it goes to David's points about being a long-term Labor government. They spent the first term working out the levers, ironing out the kinks, making sure they delivered and set up for their second term. They're actually unashamed about announcing that that's what they were doing. They were laying the groundwork for a long-term Labor government. And I think we saw in the last budget some significant movement on a bunch of things that Labor, well, certainly members of this conference would have been very excited to see in changes to the tax system. And I think that those changes, while seeming extremely controversial to journalists for the period immediately post the budget, have slowly become accepted. I don't think that it's significantly impacted our polling. I think our numbers are up again. And I think that this Labor government is going to keep reforming in a measured, planned out way. I think that the budget delivered a portion of their agenda, and that they are leaving enough in the tank to ensure that closer to the election they can make significant announcements that people will want to vote for. So I think you can sense with this government there is a strategy, there is a plan, they are following it, and they're doing it in a way to ensure that the voters come with them.
David?
Yeah, I agree. I think the last budget, you'll remember I wasn't able to comment on the last budget because you cut me from the show, but the ratings collapsed and I'm back.
With the number of houses you had, we were worried about what you were going to say.
And I'm doubling your rent. So I thought the last budget was terrific and very, very consequential, and I think a really fine example of this Labor government implementing a reform which is far more significant than has been heralded, because for literally decades, the housing bubble in Australia has just expanded, undeterred by recessions, pandemics, economic downturns of any kind. It is continually expanded, and that has happened because of an enormous pipeline of cash that is incentivised by our tax system to just constantly pump prime that. And the Howard era, that was a very, very successful model because people felt like their housing values were going up, they felt more prosperous, and they rewarded the government. But now we see in polling that a majority of homeowners are themselves of a view that house prices have to come down because this thing has just become too big. And how do you deflate a bubble without causing a major rupture in the economy? And the answer is, well, you do what Labor's just done, and you curtail in a measured and prudent way those incentives that are sending cash into our housing market. And it means that our banks, which have essentially atrophied into becoming just building societies, will have to rediscover the art of investing in business and small business rather than sitting back making money out of big inflated mortgages. So there's a productivity aspect to this Labor policy as well as a justice aspect or intergenerational justice, and moving money out of the least productive part of our economy into a more productive parts of our economy. And that's just a tremendous accomplishment. And they haven't sung to the heavens about this accomplishment because what, of course, it entails is a steady but reasonable decline in house prices. And the Labor Party, quite reasonably, doesn't want to, the way they articulate it is we're going to see the rate of growth slow.
The rate of increase is decreasing.
But what we're seeing, in fact, and with the war in Iran, you'd have to think rate rises are going to continue, and this so there'll be more rate rises. The changes to the tax system, we'll probably see property prices continue to go down at a slow but steady rate. That is, I think, fundamentally a good thing. A good thing for social justice and intergenerational equity. A great Labor accomplishment. They're not going to boast about it for the reasons I just articulated, but in 2 or 3 or 4 years, the fruit of that, I hope, will be very, very real and apparent to everyone. So full marks to the Prime Minister and the Treasurer and the Labor team because they're doing exactly what we want them to do and what we have elected them to do. Profoundly important, difficult reform. Bravo.
Jessie, have you, your colleague who was on the pod last week was Lissy Ratcliffe was talking about just saying go out and claim it. And have you been, from a comms perspective, have you been surprised in the way the government have responded to the information that's been coming to them about what David's saying, the housing bubble it's cooling a little bit? Yeah,
I don't think I've been surprised by their approach. I think that they've indicated the whole time when they've talked about this area that they aren't keen to go out and make sweeping statements about what the goal is beyond getting people into houses. And talking about the decline in the price of the housing market is kind of the unsaid part. It will surprise no one here that I agree wholeheartedly with Lissy. That absolutely I think that there is, between now and the election, a real space to claim what is going to be the fruit of this Labor government. And I think that if they don't, there's always the risk that people attribute it to something else or someone else. And I think that they've done a very brave thing. And it does feel a little bit like they've made the hard decisions and their comms are 1 foot in and 1 foot out on the decision. They've picked the intergenerational change, and my advice would be own it.
So scorecard, A or B for A, B, C, D?
For policy and then for
comms? The whole thing.
Well, I always rate comms higher than policy. I think the policy agenda has been excellent. I think that I would give it a letter. An A. I'd give them a B- for comms. Okay. Actually. Yeah, I think B-. I
think it's an A+ policy, and it's too early to know if it's anything other than an A+ in terms of comms as well.
Okay.
It's not. There's actual arguments happening on radio. Oh, the housing minister didn't actually mean to say that. What she meant was there was a correction of the market. They're cleaning it up as they go. Yeah. Do you really think you've given them an A+ for that?
I don't think it's necessarily wise for them to come out now and say, we are delighted that house prices are declining in this country.
I don't think that's what I suggested they do.
I don't know if that's the strategy we want them to adopt.
No, but I do think that they need, if it were me, I would be explaining the policy more clearly in terms of what it is going to do for young people, and getting them into homes, I don't think is enough.
I mean, I thought it was interesting. There is this old adage that, budgets that disappear quickly are usually good ones, and budgets that hang around are not.
Joe Hockey and Tony Abbott would agree with you on that.
They would. And this budget has hung around, but I'm not sure it's that's been bad for us. Because, and you touched on this, I think, Stephen, but the journalists and the commentariat were fast out of the gate to denounce it as, breach of promise, capital gains tax, yada, yada, yada. And we saw Angus Taylor for a brief moment in time imagine that he had something to talk about other than his hair. And so they launched themselves at the budget with all the gusto they could. But we've actually seen consistently over that period the budget has got good support in the community. The Labor Party has been able to tell a story, and the Labor Party's support has been, perfectly solid. So, notwithstanding the assault on the budget, I think actually it hasn't done Labor any harm at all.
Okay, it's something you can both agree on. Let's do the scorecard for the Coalition and Angus Taylor. How do you think Angus is going halfway through?
Well, Pauline Hanson put up a social media post today, for those of you who aren't following her, of Barnaby's dog, and said, Barnaby's dog got more media this week than Angus Taylor.
Jeez, that's brutal.
And she's right. So I cannot possibly give this nothingness. I have a colleague who in the office often bemoans the fact that when doing media, that anyone's asked about the opposition, because his view is they haven't even earned the right to be in the conversation. They haven't said enough, done enough. They are so irrelevant, so inconsequential. The fact that they're even offered a budget reply is perhaps beyond their station.
David?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not the leader of the opposition, Tony Abbott, who has now been installed as president of the Liberal Party. You do wonder, and I've said this before, that the problem with One Nation, one of the many problems with One Nation dancing and skipping and juggling across centre stage as they are, is they nudge out the coalition from the conversation entirely. And so Angus and friends become, a bit part commenting on One Nation and Pauline Hanson. And they cause heartburn for Labor, but Labor is the government, Labor is the adversary, Labor remains in the frame. But Pauline's most powerful effect is to lever the Liberal Party out of the national conversation. And we're watching Angus vanish in real time, aren't we, as the Liberal Party and the Liberal leader
He's done
disappear.
kitchen cabinet.
Exactly. And we've got I was watching something the other day where one of the Liberal spokespeople was busy sort of trying to distance himself from President Abbott's remarks, and I just thought the Liberal Party still haven't worked out their purpose, their role, their mission. They've got a leader who doesn't know if he's coming or going. And there was an article during the week about there being renewed chatter about Liberal Party leadership. And one of the anonymous sources, there are always anonymous sources in these kinds of articles, said, we're just not sure that Angus is smart enough. And I thought, well, we know he isn't, don't we? The guy's next idea will be his first. He's really accomplished very, very little. Perhaps it's his job to put the Liberal Party to a quiet little sleep.
It's interesting, the patience or the lack of patience of the Liberal caucus, because they rolled their previous leader based on the polling numbers. And this is even before One Nation kind of entered into the scene, right? And since then, their polling numbers have cratered. And I just wonder how long he's going to last. I can't see him getting through to the actual election.
We're at a national conference of the great Australian Labor Party, which, is a party that is, unified and operates in every corner of the country. Compare and contrast that with the Country Liberal Party, the LNP, the Liberal Party, the National Party WA, the Teals, One Nation, and some I've forgotten. There's a blizzard now of incoherent forces operating on the right. Some of them collectively caucus together as the coalition in Canberra. Some of them aren't part of that, but they're all distinct entities with their own membership lists and yada, yada, yada. They're a mess, a scrambled up mess. And until somebody or somebodies come in and rescue and reimagine and reorganise this scrambled egg, the coalition are a mess. And of course, this is why, notwithstanding the challenge of polls and issues and blah, 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 our federal Labor leaders are looking at a chamber and thinking, well, for all of the challenges that confront us, it doesn't look like many of them are going to emerge from there in the next little while.
What scorecard are you going to give Angus Taylor? A, B, C, D?
I don't think he's on the scoreboard.
I'm going to let either of you take a swing at the other minor parties, but you can only pick one. So, David, which minor party do you want to give a half-year report on?
Oh, well, I'll go the Teals because they're always a bit of fun, aren't they? So you might have noticed that there was a conclave of the Teals in recent weeks as they deliberated over the very important question, should we form a party? And at the end of this conclave, two of them decided they'd form a party, but they agreed neither of them could be the leader of it. So the two of them have become, co-conveners, co-czars, of a new political party. And the others have all said that while they've been terribly supportive of this party concept, they're not ready to join at this time. I just described what the sort of centre-right of Australian politics needs, and there's a great example of how it ain't coming from the Teals as they struggle to organise themselves and wrestle with the question, are we a party? Are we independents? How do we get all of the benefits of being an independent without any of the obligations of being a party, which is essentially their shtick?
And ever since the emergence of the Teals electorally, we kind of wondered when this moment would come. I just thought that naturally there would be people within that organisation. It's not an organisation, but within that cohort.
Climate 200.
Ecosystem.
Thank you, ecosystem, that some of them would be saying, we should, pull this and make
anyone
us a
who
party.
wanted to be the leader of the ecosystem was saying, let's create a party.
Their first attempt of it, they've just absolutely thrown up on themselves.
Well, again, depending what the objective is. And I think a bunch of them didn't want to have to deal with a leader.
No.
I think that was the end point.
Yeah, well, and for some of them, like the honourable member for Indi, she was winning that seat as an independent long before the Teals turned up. Yeah. Why is she going to run the risk of doing something new? So in some cases it made sense, but in other cases they kind of needed to bite the bullet, I think.
Yeah.
Jessie, who do you want to give a report card on in terms of the minors?
Okay, so I want to give a report card on One Nation, but it's a subtle report card on the Libs as well. One Nation, obviously, I think One Nation don't quite know even how they've got here. I think that they are themselves surprised about the electoral relevance they have at the moment. But I think that the outcome of the National Press Club address from Pauline Hanson just shows how thin and wobbly that support is. And I think it's a real indictment on the Liberal Party that they can't get their strategy together, get their shit together and just blow them out of the water. I think that One Nation is a party that will not stand up against a contrast campaign, a paid advertising campaign about the things that Pauline actually thinks. And I think that, again, that her National Press Club address showed that. And the Liberal Party should be, in a midterm kind of way, be destroying them and making themselves relevant again. I don't think until they deal with the One Nation problem, they're going to be able to set any sort of agenda. And it is going to cost them money, but I think it is a worthwhile activity. And if they were causing Labor any serious issues, I would suggest Labor start doing the One Nation attack now. I don't think necessarily strategically that is the right call for the Labor Party right now, but it certainly is for the Libs. And I think the earlier someone does it, the better.
Okay.
There's another party in the firmament as well, but their name escapes me.
That's how well they're doing.
what are the Blues? No, they're Greens. The Greens. And you might remember they used to have a leader called Adam Bant, and then after Adam they got a new one. I can't remember her name.
Larissa Waters.
Thank you. Yes, that's right. And I think her policy, as best I can tell, is a sabbatical, isn't it? It's so they Greens have been on a long holiday, and so they've kind of done a bit of an Angus, haven't they? They've disappeared off the stage. And, you know, what's going on there, I think what's interesting when you study the polls, as all of us tragics do from time to time, the Green vote really hasn't shifted at all. So you've got this great ferment in Australian politics where, you know, new cohorts of people are revolting against the political system and the two-party system and, you know, the grievance culture and blah, blah, blah. And none of that is turning into Green votes. It's turning into One Nation votes. It's turning into don't know votes. So the Greens kind of, the quintessential protest party have now become a small establishment party of the cultural left. And they are not sitting around catching and collecting this upheaval in Australian and, you know, politics across the Western world. So I think that's an interesting thing too.
Well, arguably the socialists are catching more of it than they are.
Right. So the sabbatical might have been poorly timed.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to move into categories, but what we're going to do here, we're going to do something slightly different. I've actually done a bit of research on, and I want to just recall 3 moments in Labor Party National Conference history, and I'm going to ask folks in the audience if they can sort of guess the trivia question, if they know the answer to it. The first one is we spoke before about the faceless men, the 36 faceless men that were inside a hotel in Canberra while they were meeting to determine Labor Party policy, and I think it was on the Northwest Cape decision about whether the US could put a base here in Australia. And Gough Whitlam and Arthur Corbell. Arthur Corbell then was the leader, were asked to remove themselves from the room because they weren't delegates to the conference. The trivia question is, does anyone know the name of the hotel in Canberra that they were at? Yes.
Kingo.
Yes, it was the Kingo. Okay. Supplementary question. 36 faceless men. How many women were amongst those 36 faceless men?
What?
Correct. Do you know their name? Does anyone know their name? Her name
Well
was,
done, though.
Yeah,
well done.
fantastic. I didn't know this until I'd done the research. Well, Phyllis Benjamin was a delegate from Tasmania. Was one of the 36 faceless men. Poor Phyllis got done in there by the journalist who wrote that. Alan Reid actually was the person who wrote that headline, which obviously then Menzies went on to use in the next campaign, which led to the reasons why they reformed the way that the National Conference works. The other question I was going to ask, but you said it in your opening, which was in the 2009 ALP National Conference, which was Kevin Rudd's first national conference as Prime Minister. How many contested votes happened on the floor of that conference? And I was going to give a multi-choice of 0, 12 or 40, but David said the answer before. It was 0. Okay, the last one is which high-profile delegate drunk at the 1979 National Conference right here in Adelaide told a pack of press gallery journalists at the Ansett Bar and this is the very first time I'm ever going to drop the C-bomb on the podcast. And I won't do it again.
Cover your ears.
So get ready, kids. But it's important for the which high-profile delegate told a pack of press gallery journos at the Ansett Bar that the then Labor leader Bill Hayden was a lying cunt with a limited future. And your options are Paul Keating, Mick Young, Graham Richardson, or Bob Hawke. Okay, hands up for Paul Keating. Hands up for Mick Young. Hands up for Graham Richardson. Hands up for Bob Hawke. Correct, Bob Hawke. Yeah.
To be fair, he wasn't sober at the time.
And the fallout from that actually was, I mean, he was then the ACTU president, and obviously the next year there was an election. There was talk about him going into the parliament in a seat in Melbourne, and that if he wanted to make a run for leader, he needed to get his act together. And examples of him half cut, well, more than half cut, giving brandishing opinions of the leader whilst drunk is not a great thing to be the next future Prime Minister of the country. And so from that moment on, kind of...
It worked pretty well for him over the coming years, though, didn't it? that kind of approach.
Yeah, absolutely. Who thinks he was going with a limited future? Okay, let's do categories, and we're going to rip through this pretty quickly. First category, we don't have a Tory of the Typewriter Award this week, unless anyone's got one. Probably unanswerable question. What was going through Barnaby Joyce's mind when he was yelling at his dog to shut up on ABC? Was that not one of the weirdest things to happen this year?
I think it was just so instinctual. I think he'll be bemused by the voluminous articles in Fairfax papers about how to talk to your dogs that have followed.
Yeah.
I did feel like the dog was a bit of a cipher for his broader frustration with the interview and the conduct of his glorious new leader.
Yeah.
Because it is like Barnaby's new job in politics is to get on television and explain why Pauline didn't really mean it.
And now he knows how everyone else in his party has felt about him.
Exactly right.
For years.
Yes, that's very true. Yeah. And Barnaby is the Teflon Don. Like, this is a guy who was rolling around on the streets of Canberra catatonic.
Figuratively, in the end.
Yeah. This is a guy who had a by-election in his seat where his own children campaigned against him. Driving up and down the town saying, don't vote for Dad. So, he is, objectively speaking, indestructible, isn't he?
He is.
Yeah.
I mean, it made news overseas. Like, it was in the American press.
Yeah.
Like, this is what they now think all Australian politicians are like. That's how we conduct ourselves in interviews. Just yelling at dogs and worry about crocodiles taking kids.
Yeah, it doesn't help when they can point out he was the deputy prime minister.
I know. I forgot that he was. I was like, oh, this is even worse.
Yeah.
Let's flex category, hot take. David, I think you've got a hot take. Alcohol and tobacco.
Oh, yes. Well, this is kind of one of my opportunities to rant. I love a good rant. So here's my rant. Tobacco taxes. So I was a legislator at the time that we introduced the current tobacco tax regime. And I just think it's useful for us, those of us who are interested in public policy, to think about this. We, a Labor government, put in place an escalator of costs so that the price of a tobacco or the price of a packet of cigarettes has steadily risen every quarter without fail, so that it's now about $60 a packet. And
do you smoke, David?
I do occasionally enjoy a cigarette. Yes,
important to clear your interests.
But it's fair to say that it's becoming an unaffordable habit. This was, when it was introduced, described as a health measure that the price would deter people from smoking. Smoking numbers would come down,
and it did.
The cynics might suggest that there was also a good revenue incentive for government to do this.
Good policy can do two things.
That certainly was the argument at the time. So where are we now? 80% of cigarettes sold in this country are sold by organised crime. Those companies that sell the legal product are thinking of departing the country. Smoking rates are going up. And what we find is that organised crime is using this remarkable windfall where they're able to sell products on every street and in every supermarket and every street corner, build their organisation, build their wealth, and they're now moving into, as they inevitably do, into new fields of human endeavour like illegal alcohol. Now, this should not be too newsworthy. Al Capone was a terrific beneficiary of prohibition in Chicago. But we now need to look at the facts as they're sitting in front of us and say, okay, this is a catastrophic public policy fail, which it's not achieving any of its objectives. People are not stopping smoking. Government is not raising swags of cash. Organised crime is the only beneficiary of this policy. To sort of make it even worse, that part of government that's responsible for enforcing tobacco law is the state government, and that part of government which gets all the taxes is the federal government. So neither of them are particularly interested in the job of the other. Neither of them is incentivised to deal more forcefully with the problem. We've got to wrestle with it because we are watching, an epidemic of violence and arson. We've now got reports of a criminal kingpin in Iraq who's building cigarette factories in the UAE to facilitate this burgeoning trade.
Just in Australia, though? Like the illegal tobacco trade isn't only happening here.
But nowhere do they have such a vast financial incentive.
Yeah. Look, no, I agree that the taxation level has gone beyond its policy intent and has had an inverse impact. I do think there was a sweet spot and we have sailed past it.
Right.
But it'll make for a great new season of The Wire, though, I think, if you do that. We've actually got, for Social Democrat of the Month, we've got a nomination from one of our Patreon listeners, Adrian in New South Wales, nominated Andy Burnham. Obviously, he's ascended to the leadership of the Labor Party in the UK. Thoughts, Jessie, on Mr. Burnham?
Great White Hope. I really wish him the best. I think that it's fair to say that there is more than just UK fortunes riding on his prime ministership. I think that if he manages to turn it around, it will be a blueprint for Social Democrats all across Europe and also for us. Because we have such terrible cultural cringe in this country, we don't really recognise how much the UK Labor Party does follow the Australian Labor Party in terms of policy and campaigning and party organisation. But they are dealing with some far more extreme challenges in the UK now than we have in this country. And I'm really hoping that Prime Minister Burnham can turn them around, because the UK really needs a Labor Prime Minister.
Any thoughts on?
I agree with all of that. I would just add that, one of the most influential aspects of British politics for Australians is the impact it has on the Conservatives here in Australia. Because I think you're right, we sort of take an occasional interest in the British Labor Party, but Conservatives are fixated with the Conservative debate in the UK and desperately keen to import, the talking points of reform and the coalition and whatever else they can import from the United Kingdom. So it's a far more influential politic for our political adversaries here in Australia.
And the supply chain of that is actually the UK Conservatives are obsessed with what's going on in the United States as well. Like that CPAC event is actually an inherently US-based, gathering of, it's like a modern-day Nuremberg rally of all of these right-wing, so-and-sos, right? And now they've shipped it off to the UK as well. And I'm wondering one day when it actually comes to our shores as well, which would be actually a bit of concern.
It would have happened faster if Pauline had filled the room in the UK one, I reckon.
Yeah. Last topic, who won the month? Jessie.
I think I'm sick of saying Pauline Hanson.
Yeah,
and I don't think she had the best month, so I'm very pleased to say that it wasn't her this month. And the Prime Minister has fully bedded in a significant budget and has just, I know the most controversial day is tomorrow, but has managed to get through national conference, which I will let you in a secret. Leaders don't like state conferences, federal conferences. They would prefer far fewer of them and look for every opportunity to cancel them. And I think he's come through this conference a greater stature in the party than a diminished one. So they are not easy things for incumbent governments in particular to get through. And I think despite the elevator mishap, I think he's had a wonderful conference.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's something happening in politics at the moment. I don't know what its sort of long-term effect will be, but it does seem to be that there's kind of two kind of politics in Australia where you'll talk to the Prime Minister or to the Treasurer or to one of the federal government ministers and those conversations are kind of real and they're on 7:30 or whatever and they're about public policy. And then there's kind of a vaudeville act that happens over in the other part of the show, and that's where One Nation and Barnaby and his dog and Pauline and the others. And
To be fair, that was on 7:30.
and the coalition hasn't really, none of the right have got themselves into a place where they're actually having a serious conversation. Now, they're obviously, I guess my only reflection on that is that it does feel like this government is cementing itself as kind of the adult in the room. There's a gravitas about government. They're serious, they're doing things, they're focused on trying to explain what they're doing. And then over in the corner, you go, and that dynamic is diabolical, I think, in the longer term.
Yeah. All right, we're at time, folks. Before we wrap up, a couple of thanks to people. First, I want to thank the team here at the Jade for opening up and giving us space to do the session. Thank you so much. I want to thank Grace, our producer, who does our shows each week. Gets them out on time and deals with all the audio problems that we often have every now and then.
And now protesters.
Yeah, I know. We'll thank them in a minute. Actually, no, I'll thank them now. I want to thank the...
No, it was Grace's dealing with the protesters.
Yeah, did a great job. And also thank you, comrades, for just dealing with the park people or whatever they were called. Well done. Good job by you. Yeah. I want to thank the South Australian branch of the Labor Party and... particularly for the State Secretary Eamon and the team there for helping promote this episode. We do really appreciate that. And I want to thank South Australian Young Labour as well and Eloise. I want to thank our tech man for... What's your name? Matt. Thank you, Matt, for doing the tech. Appreciate that. Good job by you. I want to thank you guys, the audience, for coming along as well. I really do appreciate that. To be honest with you, when we do podcasts, right, it's weird because normally you're just looking at someone else on your screen. So it's nice to actually see lots of faces in the room and do a recording. So we really enjoy these opportunities to do live shows, but it only works if people come along. So thank you for your support of the podcast as well. We do appreciate that. Thank you. And the last but not least, thank you to our two guests, David and Jessie. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Stephen.
All right, thanks. And let's go for a drink at the bar.
Bravo.
Hey, Social Democrats. Thanks for listening. Today's episode was hosted by myself, Stephen Donnelly, and produced by Grace Eyre. If you like the show, please rate us and review us wherever you get your podcasts. And if you really like the show, then join our Patreon community for early and ad-free access to each episode. We regularly take questions and comments from our Patreon members, so get in there if you want to have your say. And finally, get all the latest updates and bonus content by following Socially Democratic on our social media channels. The links are in our show notes. See you next Friday.